just to give a specific example, my understanding is in the 70s, I guess it was under the Carter administration when they wanted to put in the speed limits that, the Constitution doesn't give the federal government the authority to say what the speed limit is in a state, but they just told the governors, well, we're not going to give you highway funding if you don't put them at 55 mile per hour, and so it was like money taken from the people to build roads in their state. And, that why should the federal government have anything to do with that? But yet that's how it worked.
And I think it's the same with seatbelts. I believe the New Hampshire, they forewent the seatbelt thing, and they don't get a lot of federal funding for their highways actually because of, I believe. And then I see it here with education and our school budget and how, literally the fact is that, if you want this money, you have to do this. There's all these strings attached to it. And in some cases, sadly, those strings have nothing to do with education. They have a lot to do with social issues.
Right. And that kind of ties in what you said before. Like, I think the average person who wants to become a fourth grade teacher, it's not because it's like, haha, so I can indoctrinate. No, they like kids and want to teach. But then like the curricula that's getting, the Common Core and all the stuff that there's horror stories about is coming from a centralized, system that's, driven by, massive taxes and so forth.
I really try not to criticize the people within the system. Now, some deserve it, especially the politicians, but a lot of the folks that are working government jobs, those jobs would still be there too. That's what a lot of libertarian folks have to understand, is those jobs would still be there. They'd be provided by someone else, but they'd still be there. But in most cases, those are just folks trying to do a good job and not thinking that deeply about it. Right.
Yeah. Like the average person, it's just, well, of course, law enforcement is the police in the courts, or we were talking about, of course the government builds the road. What do you mean? So, yeah. So you mentioned, a few minutes ago about you wanted your grandkids to say, hey, at least grandpa did what he could. So that suggests that you think there really is, that America's future hangs in the balance, as it were, not to be overly dramatic. But so I guess I'll say that, like, you don't think that that's being overly dramatic. You really do think everyone needs to wake up if they haven't been paying attention and that this is serious?
No, absolutely. We have almost $35 trillion in national debt now. That does not include the unfunded liabilities, which are actually in the hundreds of trillions of dollars. None of it is sustainable. Look, we're never going to pay that debt back. And governments actually don't pay the debt back. Generally, what they do is they roll it over because you always have new projects. I get that. However, what you have to look at is your ability to service the debt, okay? Which, in our case, comes from our taxpayers. Again, the feds are just printing money, which exacerbates the problem even worse. But nevertheless, we're going to reach a point where debt service on the national debt for the federal government is going to be $1 trillion plus a year. It's going to bust budget at some point. And you just have all these different issues, all these problems that at some point, it just doesn't work anymore. And I don't know what that looks like. Some folks talk about hyperinflation. I don't know if that happens in America. I do think that we will see very high inflation. I think that we'll see stagflation. If you look at the global environment, obviously, China and Russia are chipping away at the dollar as the world reserve currency. I believe that they're trying to replace it with regional reserve currencies in their spheres of influence, which means that we can't export the inflation that we've been causing. The money that's been printing will not leave the country, which obviously is going to cause inflation here within the country. So we have a lot of issues monetarily. We have a lot of issues. I was really happy to see the Supreme Court pull back on the Chevron doctrine, which neuters the administrative state to a great extent. Needs to be more of that. But frankly, government's just way too big and they're making horrible decisions. And I do believe that is going to have an impact going forward. Obviously, none of us know what that looked like. Politically, too, we're at times it feels like we're living in two separate countries. Down in Tennessee, we consider ourselves pretty sane and normal. And then we look at other parts of the country and just shake our head. And we're in a very uncomfortable union right now. And it doesn't look like there's anyone on the horizon that is going to be able to bring that together. Practically, a lot of it is because people, on both sides really don't want that to happen. Again, the beauty of things like the 10th Amendment is, us and we in Tennessee can say, hey, look, California, y'all do what you want. All right. If you want to legalize abortion, great. If you want to ban guns, Great. Do what you want. We're going to be pro-life here. We're going to be very gun friendly here. You leave us alone. We leave you alone. That's not how most people see it, though. They see that the winner is the person that puts the top-down policies on the entire place. And unfortunately, that's just causing more and more tension among different sections of the U.S. So I do think that we have some serious issues. I look at this presidential election coming up, and I don't know what November looks like. I mean, no matter who wins, half the country is going to be irate about it. Of course, I support Trump. I support the Republican, but I don't know that the country can stand much more of the policies that have come out of the Biden White House. At the same time, I think that if Trump wins, I think that people on the left are going to lose their minds. So we have some serious issues as a country, both economically and politically.
Yeah, it's funny you say how the 10th Amendment, that would certainly, and for folks who don't know, or we might have foreign viewers, that the 10th Amendment saying that the power is not expressly given in the Constitution to the federal government, reserved to the states or the people. And so the idea is if the Constitution doesn't explicitly say the federal government has the power to do something, then it doesn't have that power. And it's lower.
And that almost everything, by the way, with the exception of national defense, coining money, not printing money, but coining money, and basically interactions with foreign governments and issues and conflicts among the states, between the states, and among and between people from different states. That's really about all the federal government is supposed to be doing. All this other stuff is supposed to be left up to the states. It's interesting. I'm sorry to cut you off, but look at Roe v. Wade and the Dobbs decision. What people don't understand is all that the Supreme Court said was the Constitution does not speak to abortion. Therefore, it is an issue that the states should regulate. That was it. And this has been something for a long, long time that legal scholars and constitutional scholars have been saying is the right decision. It did not ban abortion nationwide, okay? But it did allow, in Tennessee, our legislature already had a bill in place. It's one of the most pro-life in the country. We can do that in Tennessee. But, you'd hear the Democrats saying, well, what we should have done is codify Roe. That's not what the Supreme Court said. The Supreme Court still would have thrown that out because what they're saying is Congress can't make this decision. The federal government can't.
Right.
Now, it was even worse because Roe was a Supreme Court decision. Basically, they legislated from the bench. But Dobbs, what they were saying, even Clarence Thomas said that he would probably have to basically vote against or nullify a federal abortion ban, even though he's very pro-life. At the same time, you have some Republicans saying that, we need some sort of national ban on whatever. Well, the Supreme Court's not going to go with that. What you need, if you want to do that, is you need a constitutional amendment. So it's just, and of course, this has all now been used for political purposes, and Trump's going to ban abortions and all this nationwide. And he's even said that he believes it's a states' right issue. So it's a kind of a subtlety, but it's very important. And I think the 10th Amendment and federalism would make our lives as Americans much easier because it would allow people in different states to be able to self-govern more effectively.